Happy morning, students. Blue Stars Higher Secondary School welcomes you all to learn this prose, The Accidental Tourist, the humorous story, which was written by Bill Bryson. At times, we see people who are awkward, nervous, and doubtful about their next move. Here, Bill Bryson offers himself for laughter. He describes his lack of grace or skill when traveling. He cannot do a simple day-to-day activity without creating a mess. Most of us never ponder how effortlessly we carry out our routine activity. It is wired up in our brains, but some people like Bill Bryson find it difficult and almost impossible. Before entering into the story, we are going to learn about the author. Author William Bill McGuire Bryson was born on 8th December 1951 at Iowa in USA. His education, Drake University. And then he was an essayist and a non-fiction writer. Some of his famous works are A Brief History of Everything, Notes from a Small Island, Neither Here Nor There, Made in America. Some of his honors and awards: Chancellor of Durham University, Aventis Prize, President's Award from the Royal Society of Chemistry, and then some of his specialty is travelogue, science, and in humor. He is a best-selling American author of humorous books on travel, as well as book on the English language and science. Born in America, he was a resident of Britain for most of his adult life before returning to the US in 1995. In 2003, Bryson moved back to Britain, living in the old rectory of Ramlingham, Norfolk, and was appointed as Chancellor of Durham University. Bryson shot to prominence in the UK with the publication of Notes from a Small Island 1995, an exploration of Britain, and its accompanying television series. He received widespread recognition again with the publication of A Short History of Nearly Everything 2003. Some of his books: Bill Bryson, The Body, A Guide for Occupants, American Diary, At Home, A Walk in the Woods, The Road to Little Dribbling, Notes from a Small Island, The Complete Notes. Now, before entering into the story, some of the warm-up exercises given here. Listen it carefully. Often on formal occasions, we admire friends and strangers who appear elegant, who are pleasant to converse with, and who conduct themselves gracefully. At times, we also see people who are awkward, nervous, and doubtful about their next move. Recall a few examples of awkward actions that can cause discomfort or disturbance to others, like spilling a cup of hot drink on someone nearby. Once I travelled in a tourist bus to Ooty. On the way, I felt thirsty, so I took a bottle of water and opened the cork. Without any intention or forethought, I poured water through the window to clean my hand. A scooterist who was driving behind became my victim. The water poured on his head and instantly he shouted angrily. Fortunately, he balanced his vehicle and avoided accident. During lunch, I sat on the veranda to have my meal. As I did not like the pickle, I threw it overhead. It fell on the head of a boy taking lunch at my back. He shouted at me furiously. Now we are going to see the summary of the story. The author Bill Bryson cannot do a simple day-to-day activity without creating a mess. Of all the things he is not very good at is living in the real world. It's the most outstanding thing. He always wonders how other people do a number of things without any evident difficulty. This is very much beyond him. He cannot tell us the number of times that he has gone looking for the lavatory in a cinema, for instance, and ended up standing in an alley on the wrong side of a self-locking door. His particular specialty at present is returning to hotel desk 2 or 3 times a day and asking what his room number is. In short, he is easily confused. He is always doing like the same. What he is always doing? Yes, he is always forgetting his own hotel number, own hotel room number. Then he is going to hotel desk for their help. So, what type of man he is? He is a easily confused man. Without others' help, he can't able to find out his own hotel room. Then, once he went to England with his family on a big trip at Easter. They were flying to England for a week. When they arrived at Logan Airport in Boston and were checking in, he suddenly remembered that he had recently joined British Airways frequent flyer program. What it is? Yes, British Airways frequent flyer program. It's a program which helps the travelers to give some offer, like cashback, like that. He also remembered that he had put the card in the carry-on bag that was hanging around his neck, and there the trouble started. So without any trouble he can't able to do anything, isn't it? That's why what he kept in his bag? Yes, he is keeping his card. That means that frequent flyer program card in his bag. For taking that card, he is opening his carry-on bag. At that time, the trouble started. What trouble is there inside the bag? Not inside the bag. With the Bill Bryson. Bill tried to open the bag to take out the card, but the zip on the bag was jammed. Jammed means what? It is not opening correctly. It is repaired. So he pulled on it with a jerk, grunting and frowning with an increasing worry. For taking that card, he is showing some urgency. That's why he is jerking lot of things there inside it. He kept on doing this for some minutes, but he wouldn't move. So he pulled it harder and harder with more grunts. Suddenly the zip gave away. The side of the bag flew open, and everything in it, the newspaper cuttings and the other loose papers, and then 4-ounce tin pipe tobacco, magazines, passport, English money, and film extravagantly spread over a large area about the size of tennis court. So what happened? The bag flew open. At the same time, what are the things are there inside the bag? Everything spread out. So Bill, watching shockingly as 100 carefully sorted documents fell down in large quantities like a fluttery waterfall. The coins bounced, producing a variety of noises. You know, the bouncing coins, it makes lot of noise. The lidless tin of tobacco rolled madly. The tobacco, the tin, it is rolling across the open area, discharging its contents. He was worried about his tobacco, thinking what he would have to pay for so much tobacco spilled. As another budget had come and gone in England, he was worried how much he had to pay for so much tobacco. Suddenly, he noticed that his finger got hurt by the zip. It was deeply cut and shedding too much of blood. Normally, he doesn't bother when he sees blood. He's not having any allergy like that. But if it is his own blood, he becomes a hysteric. Confused and unable to help himself, he stays in a panic position. Actually, he was very panic. At that moment, his wife looked at him with an expression of wonder, not with anger or irritation. She, his wife, looking at him, for what he is looking, with an expression of wonder. You, Bill, like that. She said to him that she cannot believe that he can do that mess for a living. Bryson knows very well that he always has terrible disaster when he travels. What are the disasters? Once on an aeroplane, he leaned over to tie his shoelace. Just at that moment, someone in the seat ahead of him threw his seat back into full recline. So he found himself pinned helplessly in the crash position. Because of the next seat person, he was in the crash position. He was crashed. It was only by hurting the leg of the man sitting next to him that he managed to get himself free. This was not the worst experience on a plane flight. His worst experience was when he was writing important thoughts in a notebook. He was sucking thoughtfully on a end of his pen and fell into a conversation with an attractive lady in the next seat. He amused her with refined witty remarks for perhaps 20 minutes. He then retired to the lavatory where he discovered that his pen had leaked and his mouth, chin, tongue, teeth and gums were a striking scrub resistant navy blue. It was so much stained that it would remain so for several days. I have worried with these inky tongue, inky teeth, inky gums. I have conversed with that beautiful young lady. Bill asks us to understand him and trust that how much he acts to be polite and sophisticated. He would love just once in his life to rise from a dinner table without looking as if he had just experienced an extremely localized seismic event. Get in a car and close the door without leaving 14 inches of coat outside. Wear light colored trousers without discovering at the end of the day that he had at various times sat on the chewing gum, ice cream, cough syrup and motor oil. But it was not to be so. So he is always making some dirty. He is always making some some stains because of the chewing gum, ice cream, cough syrup, motor oil, everything. On planes, when the food is delivered, his wife would ask her children to take the lids of the food for Bill or wear their cover on their heads as their father was going to eat. She is alerting her children, your father, he is going to eat, so you have to safeguard your head, like that. All this will happen only when he is flying with his family, but when he travels lonely, he doesn't eat, drink or lean over to tie his shoelaces and never puts his pen anywhere near his mouth, because he was experienced, isn't it? Because of all these things he was experienced. That's why he is not doing when he travels lonely. He just sits very, very quietly, sometimes on his hands, to keep them from flying out without his knowledge unexpectedly and causing liquid mischief. He considers this as not much fun, but it does not cut down at least the laundry bills. So he decides to save his laundry bill. Bill feels that he never did his frequent flyer miles and he will never do it. He couldn't find the card in time. That has become a real frustration for him. Everyone is for flying off to Bali with their air miles. He cannot get to collect anything. He must fly 1 lakh miles a year, but he had accumulated only about 212 air miles divided between 23 airlines. This happens because he either forgets to ask for the air miles when he checks in, or he remembers to ask for them. So the airline then manages not to record them, or the check-in clerk informs him that he is not entitled to them. In January, on a flight to Australia, a flight for which he was going to get about a zillion air miles, the clerk shook her head and told him that he was not entitled to it when he presented his card to her. She said it was because the ticket was in the name of B. Bryson and the card was in the name of W. Bryson. So the confusion of his name, B. Bryson means Bill Bryson, W. Bryson means William Bryson. Both the B. Bryson and W. Bryson is for the author Bill Bryson, isn't it? But because of this confusion, the clerk refused to give him that offer to him. Though he explained to her the close and venerable relationship between Bill and William, she didn't have it. So Bill didn't get his air miles. He won't be flying to Bali first class for some time. Perhaps he could never go that long distance without eating. So this is the story. Have you all enjoyed the story well? Yes. Now we are going to learn the glossary which helped us to learn this story easily. Alley, narrow passage. In family, as a family. Yanked, pulled with a jerk or snatched. Consternation, worry. Extravagantly, excessively. Cascade, waterfall. Concourse, open central area. Disgorging, discharging. Gashed, cut deeply. Hysterics, a fit of uncontrollable laughing or crying. Exasperation, irritation. Catastrophe, a terrible disaster. Bonds mods, witty remarks. Suave, polite and sophisticated. Venerable, valued. Bill, William. The letter W is changed to B and William is called Bill. Evident, visible. Instance, example. In family, as a family. Yanked, pulled with a jerk. Frowns, angry expressions. Abruptly, suddenly. Extravagantly, excessively. Sorted, arranged, pretty much. Alley, a narrow passage way. Jam, blocked. Grunts, groans. Budge, move. Gave way, broke. Dumbstruck, astonished. Fluttery, agitated. Cascade, waterfall. Oblivions, forgetfulness. Concourse, open area in a public building here airport. Gashed, wounded. Hysterics, uncontrollable laughter. Exasperation, irritation. Ahead, before. Clawing, scratching. Amused, entertained. Urban, courteous. Suave, sophisticated. Seismic, related to earthquake. Accumulated, gathered. Bounced, rebound. Crazily, madly. Disgorging, emptying. Lavish, excessive. panic, fear, catastrophe, terrible disasters, recline, lie back, attractive, beautiful, scattering, spreading, act, pain, extremely, exceptionally, frustration, annoyance. Now we are going to learn some of the short answers. Based on your understanding of the lesson, answer the following questions in 1 or 2 sentences each. Give a few instances of Bryson's confused acts. Mistakenly, he placed a flyer program inside his carry-on bag. He was confused to take that out. In a plane, he tried to tie his shoelace and found himself pinned in the crash position. He kept the pen into his mouth and had the ink all over his face. What were the contents of the bag? The contents of the bag were newspaper cuttings, loose papers, 14-ounce tin of pipe tobacco, magazines, passport, English money, and film. Describe the fluttery cascade of things tumbling from the bag. He was wonderstruck to see the well-arranged documents flying out of the bag. The coins bounced noisily and the tobacco tin rolled across the airport, spreading the contents all over the place. Why did the author's concern over tobacco shift to his finger? The author was feeling sorry for spilling all the contents of the bag. Then he realized that he had a wound in his finger and it was bleeding profusely. So his concern shifted to his finger. What happened to Bryson when he leaned to tie his shoelace? When he leaned to tie his shoelace, unfortunately the one who occupied his front seat pulled his seat back and Bryson was caught between the two seats. Then with the help of his neighbor he got released. How did Bryson free himself from the crash position? By clawing the leg of the man sitting next to him, Bryson freed himself. What was Bryson's worst accident on a plane? Bryson's worst accident on a plane was when he sucked the back of his pen. Then he realized that his pen had leaked and he got the ink on his mouth, chin, tongue, teeth, and gums. What did Bryson wish to avoid in his life? Bryson wished to avoid getting frequent flyer miles. How would staying away from liquid mischief benefit Bryson? If Bryson stayed away from liquid mischief, he need not spend much on his laundry bills. Why did the clerk say that Bryson was not entitled to flyer miles? The ticket was in the name of B. Bryson, but the card was in the name of W. Bryson. So the clerk said that Bryson was not entitled to flyer miles. Answer the following questions in about 3 to 4 sentences each. Why doesn't Bryson seem to be able to do easily what others seem to? Give a few reasons. Bryson had the problem of living in real world. He found it difficult to live with the surroundings which others could do easily. Because of this, he had unnecessary confusion in dealing with ordinary things. What was the reaction of Bryson's wife to his antics? When Bryson pulled the zip of his bag to open, it gave way and all the contents fell on the floor. There were only old paper cuttings and some magazines along with some important articles like passport. He was trying to collect all the articles which had been falling down. In her reaction, his wife said she could not believe that he did that for a living. Briefly describe the accidents encountered on the flight by Bryson. Once he was in a plane and he bent down to tie his shoelace. By the time one who sat in front pulled back his seat and he was caught in between the seats, he got relieved with the help of a man who was sitting next to him. Once he sucked the back of his pen, then he realized that the pen leaked and he got the ink on his mouth, chin, tongue, teeth, and gums. Now we are going to learn about the paragraph questions, about 100 to 150 words. To this day, I don't know how I did it. What does it refer to? We have to write the name of the title, that means title of the story, The Accidental Tourist, name of the author, Bill Bryson. Then we have to write the theme, frustrations of a globetrotter and chavos in his everyday life. It refers to the knocking of the soft drinks on the lap of a lady in a flight. Once Bill Bryson was flying in an aeroplane. Accidentally, he knocked his soft drinks, and the lady who was sitting next to him became the victim of his inadvertency. The flight attendant came to the rescue of the lady. He cleaned the mess and brought another drink to the author. This time also he knocked his drink, which spoiled the lap of the poor lady. See thing with fury, she swore at him for his act of negligence. She uttered an oath which started with O and ended with say. The author had never come across such unpleasant, unquote words. He felt embarrassed on the spot. To this day, Bryson says that he does not know how it happened. The most confused we ever get is when we are trying to convince our heads of something our heart knows is a lie. Next question. But when it's my own, well, I think his tricks are fully justified. How? Yes, we have to write the title of the story, The Accidental Tourist. Then we have to write the name of the author, Bill Bryson. Then the theme, frustrations of a globetrotter and chavos in his everyday life. In the lesson, The Accidental Tourist, Bryson describes how he suffers because of his unnecessary tension and stress during his travel in flight. Once he mistakenly kept his request flyer program inside his carry-on bag. He had to open the bag to find out that he could not open it easily because the zip got jammed. He pulled it with all his strength and the zip gave way. All the contents fell on the floor of the airport. The contents were newspaper cuttings, loose papers, a tin of pipe tobacco, magazines, passport, English money and film. He tried to collect them, but it was not easy for him. His tin of tobacco was rolling and emptying the tobacco powder all across the place. He felt bad about that. By the time he realized that he had hurt his finger, it was bleeding profusely. He could not withstand the sight of blood normally, but here it was his own blood, so his shriek crying was fully justified. Anyone who isn't confused really doesn't understand the situation. Then the next one. Bring out the pun in the title, The Accidental Tourist. One who happens to travel by accident or one who meets with accidents often on his or her trips. A pun is a play on words that produces a humorous effect by using a word that suggests two or more meanings, or by exploiting similar sounding words that have different meanings. Humorous effects created by puns depend upon the ambiguities the words entail. These ambiguities arise mostly in homophones and homonyms. For instance, in the sentence, a happy life depends on a liver. The word liver can refer to the bodily organ or simply a person who lives, though we may not use it in our regular meaning. Similarly, in the saying, atheism is a non-profit institution, the word profit is used instead of profit to produce a humorous effect. In the same way, the title, The Accidental Tourist, gives two meanings. One, the person who happens to travel by accident, that is not a regular traveler. Another one, the person who meets with accidents often on his trips. In the lesson written by Bryson, he was a regular traveler, but he met with accidents. Not physical accidents, but mental accidents because of his confusion for small things. As he says, he was not comfortable with the real world. The fourth one, can a clumsy person train himself or herself to overcome shortcomings? How could this be done? Our repeated actions become our habits. Even the clumsy people have become so because of their repeated clumsy actions. If any action is stopped for some time with a certain effort from the individual, that habit can be stopped. So the clumsy person can train himself to overcome the shortcomings, but it truly depends on the individual. Others can give some motivation or guidance. First of all, they should realize that what they do is wrong. Unless they correct themselves, they would not be accepted in society as normal people. They should try to live in the real world. The 55th one, as a fellow passenger of Bill Bryson on the flight, make a diary entry describing his clumsy behavior during the trip and the inconveniences caused to others as a result of his nervousness. We have to write it as a letter here. 7th June, 3:30 p.m. Bill Bryson was a confused man because of his nervousness. He spoils his life and the life of others who are around him. I was his co-passenger. He broke open the zip of his carry-on bag. All the contents fell on the floor of the airport. Papers were flying here and there, giving all kinds of trouble to the other waiting passengers. His pipe tobacco tin opened and the tobacco powder was flying everywhere. He hurt his finger in the process of opening the zip. Then he shouted out of pain after seeing his blood. Once I was sitting next to him in the plane, he bent forward to tie his shoelace. The one who was sitting in front of him pulled his seat back and Bryson was caught in between the seats. I finally helped him out of the trouble. This day also he was traveling with me. He had his pen in his mouth and got the ink over mouth, tongue, teeth and gum. He walked here and there awkwardly. Indeed, his clumsy behavior made me split my sides. Thank you. Thank you, students.